In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg. In the house again with, old Ish here and Drake, our Labrador Retriever, who is recovering from his surgery last week. Next week he gets out his stitches. Yeah, but he's doing great. He's happy. Feels a lot better. Looks a lot better. But anyways, we're going to talk tonight about law schools and leadership, or lack thereof. So why am I talking about this topic tonight? Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm talking about this topic tonight, or this morning, or afternoon, or whatever time zone you're in, or whenever you're listening to this, no matter what the continent. So on my marketing feeds or business feeds on social media, I see a lot of posts from different associations regarding lawyers, mostly, and sometimes judges, but mostly lawyers. And I got to tell you, I'm disgusted. I really am. We got over 200 law schools in this nation, I think accredited, somewhere a little bit over 200, and 1.3 million active lawyers, according to the most recent statistics. But I've said this before, and it's gotten worse. We just don't have leaders. Law schools, you are failing. You are failing to produce leaders. Here's what you're doing. You are sitting there and immersing students in untruths. You are immersing them in DEI and PC and spin. You are. What I see happening when I go on websites or social media and all the glam photos you put on social media of all these events and all this other stuff and all these associations and let's be all inclusive, but blah, 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 and all that crap. You are not producing litigators. Now, I get it. There are different things that lawyers can do in their profession. They all don't have to be litigators. But here's one thing I like about the Marine Corps. Now, I wasn't a Marine. I was in the Army. But one thing I've always heard or seen from a lot of Marines is that everybody's infantry. Everybody's infantry. You get shot out of your plane, you get blown out of your tank, out of your boat. Everybody's walking, everybody's infantry. And I like that principle. You want to know why? Because the reality is, in most of the armed services, it's the guy or girl on the ground, the boots on the ground. A lot of times it gets it done. And I get we've got all this technology, drones, blah, blah, all this crap. But you know what? When you knock satellites out of the sky, when you erode or black out the grids and you have no power and you have no logistics and you can't get fuel and you can't get all these other things, then it comes down to the man or the woman on the ground. Every time. And so you law school should be leading students to open, to own, to operate, and to lead their own law firms, whether they ultimately do or they don't. They need to have that basic foundation, and they don't. Instead, I get it. You teach them the academics, blah, 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 get them ready for the bar exam. And quite frankly, all you really care about, truthfully, is keeping your accreditation, getting your tuition, and then what your percentages are on the bar pass race so you can happy clap, and pat yourself on the back and walk around like strutted peacocks. But what you're doing is you're sending these students out there that they don't know how to navigate the real world because the legal matrix is cruel. It knocks them down. And a lot of them, they're not really ready. Now, some people say, well, how do you really get ready? I'll tell you what you do. In the third year, you put their ass in the courtroom. The hell with electives. You don't need electives in the third year. Law school can be done in 2 years. In the third year, you make them go out and establish a law firm. You make them go out and actually open, own, operate, or work with law firms. Get them in the courtroom. Get them to understand how litigation works, how they have to navigate through judges and clients and opposing counsel, what it takes to run a trust account. All of those things that they actually need to know. Typing lawsuits, typing court orders, okay? Not to throw them in the corner and just let them do legal research. Yeah, legal research is important, but if they don't have the basic foundations of body of being a balance in business and they're all jacked up, they're going to end their careers before it begins. Now, the one thing I liked about my law school back in the day when I went there is it was designed to develop and lead litigators to go out and open, own, operate, and lead your own law firm and take no prisoners. Now that mission's kind of, to me, watered down in the law school I went to. And it just irritates the living hell out of me. And you law schools get up there and the ABA and all blah, 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 and all these other voluntary organizations, all this crap, and you pontificate all this crap out there, you are doing a disservice. What you're doing is you're just developing lemmings. They will ultimately go over the cliff into the abyss of self-destruction. We are producing people that live in delusion and deception and lies and spin. That's right. I'm calling you law schools out. And I can do that. You want to know why I can do that? Because I spent 34 years owning, operating, leading 2 law firms. I worked in public service. I've litigated at state and federal levels. No, I haven't done a ton of jury trials. Okay, I give you that. No, I haven't. But I've been in the game. I've got skin in the game. And the reality is, the law students I see coming out today, some of them are pretty bright. I was watching a couple on some of the social media platforms. They get it. They're in their 20s. I mentioned this the other day when I was posting something on Instagram and one of the other shows and TikTok. These particular few lawyers that I saw that were 26, 30, and maybe in their 20s, they are litigators and they get it. I don't know how they got it, but they were spot on in what they were saying in their video posts. But the majority of lawyers today, the majority of law students today, they don't have a clue. And the problem is the professors that are in there, for the most part, they just don't want to practice anymore. They just don't. They just want to coast in the world of academia, get their salaries, okay? And then, just get tenure or whatever the hell you call it, and then send them on their way. Oh, yeah, they'll teach the courses and all that sort of stuff. But you know what? You need people with up-to-date experience that are still in the game. There's too much academics. You've got to get these students in the cockpit. You've got to get them in the fighter jets of litigation. You've got to get them in there where they understand the pressures, where they understand how the world really works, what the legal matrix really is. Because if you don't do that, then ultimately they're going to burn out. They're going to have strokes and heart attacks, depression. And I mean, think about it. That's prevalent in the legal profession right now. How do I know that? Because the ABA publishes annually their reports. It comes out usually in November or December of every year. And it's a great report. I'll give them credit for that. It's a superb statistical analysis that they put together. One of the best I've ever seen. And in one of the sections, it talks about lawyers and how they're doing with their mental health, their emotional, their physical. And it breaks it down based on studies. And it's not good. And you want to know why it's not good? Because we sit there and live in this artificial world of happy clapping, like it'll all be okay. Well, you know what? No, it won't always be okay. It's not always okay. I sit here every day in litigation and prep for litigation and deal with reality. And when I bring law clerks or interns in here, they have to do everything I do. They don't get to just sit there back and play on their social media accounts and drink coffee and go get latte. No, they got to jump right in. We throw their ass in the fire. That's the only way they're going to learn. When I was a brand new second lieutenant, I didn't know much of anything. Sure, I had great instructors, people that were combat veterans of Vietnam, a lot of NCOs that were special forces, officers that had fought in combat. And then I went to my officer basic course, and I'm like, it sucked. I didn't learn anything. I spent like 5 or 6 months here. I didn't learn anything. You know what I learned? Is when I arrived to my unit, one of the largest battalions in the Army, I had like two times the number of people that are normally in a platoon. And they're like, here are your people. And I'm like, now what the hell do I do? And that first year was it was rough. Because that's where you either swim or you sink. And I wish that I had more of an opportunity to get in the mix before I got commissioned. Now, I'm not saying that my instructors were bad. They were. But the reality is, in any profession, you have to throw people in the fire. The fire is what forges people to be a solid sword, a weapon to go out there and do battle and wage war against the enemy. And you law schools are failing. You're failing miserably. I see it every single day. The folks you guys are churning out, a lot of them are immature. They're entitled. Okay? And then they take this attitude into the courtroom with them. Ooh. Well, they're about to get leveled. You want to know why? Because that's what we've done with our generation in this country. You know whose fault that is? Oh, it's not necessarily theirs all the time. It's people from generations that are in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, and in their 70s and some of their 80s that created this insanity in this nation, that created this delusion and this deception that everybody's inclusive, that, this socialism, this Marxism, and it spills over even into the law schools. That's the problem in the legal profession. That's what the legal matrix wants. It wants to lead law students into this abyss of false security. And you want to know what, law schools? You perpetuate it. You allow it to happen. You forge it. And then you just graduate them and next class it enters for the 1L year and get the tuition dollars. And I'm telling you, law students, right now, law school does not need to be 3 years at all. 2 years academic, a year in that courtroom, a year owning, operating, leading, putting together a law firm, and getting ready to take the bar exam. Is the bar exam a guarantee that you're going to do well in the legal profession? No. It might be an indicator of certain things. You don't want to have stupid people out there practicing law. And believe me, you got a lot of them out there. There are a lot of dumb lawyers. There are a lot of good lawyers too. But the old saying, one aw shit wipes out 100 attaboys. And that's the truth. That's the truth. You law schools need to wake up. You need to quit putting out this propaganda that you're putting out on social media. You voluntary associations, whether it's the ABA or the state associations, you need to quit putting out this crap. You need to get down to the nitty gritty. You all keep talking about why lawyers are depressed and things they need to do and balance and stuff, but you want to know what? The court system doesn't provide that. You're just feeding people full of crap. And then law students, why do you think when I talk to people, they're like, I talked to a few of them in the last year or two that have been out not even 5 years and they hate it. They absolutely detest it and hate it and are looking for a way to get out and find something else to do. Now, that may be a personal choice, but I'll tell you what, it's prevalent. I talked to a lot of my colleagues who have been doing this for decades, and they hate it. Because the breed of lawyer that you law schools are churning out, not good. Not good. In the legal profession itself, it's to the highest bidder, to who controls the agenda politically. And that's the truth. And you can sit there and debate that all day long, but every time I sit there and I watch the nominations for a U.S. Supreme Court justice, it's all along party lines. The party that's in power, that confirms them, wants their guy or girl on the bench, whether they're qualified or not. I'm really afraid of like a lot of the federal judges that are on the bench that have been put on the bench in the last 20 years. And at the state court level, it's not necessarily about qualification. At the local level, it's all who you know. Getting the votes. Most of the citizens don't even know who the hell their judges are. They don't know anything. Unless they go to family court, then they know. Or they get a DUI, then they know. Other than that, they don't. You law schools need to buck up. You need to get with the program. It's a cruel world out there. And we're not operating in truth. We're not leading in truth. We're not operating in truth. You're producing lemmings. What's happening? And I respect the young man or woman coming out of law school that says, I'm going to go do battle. I'm going to go wage war for truth. I do. Because I'll tell you, that's the way I was trained and led in law school. And I look back and I tell you, I was grateful for the honor and the privilege to be accepted and to go, and the discipline and the hard curriculum and putting me through that fire to forge me into a weapon of truth and to be a litigator. And again, you law students, you don't have to be a litigator. There's many other areas where we need, of law where we need lawyers. No doubt about it. We do. But at the end of the day, when the world as it burns to the ground, you lawyers are going to have to stand up for truth. And if you don't, then you're going to burn in the fires of delusion and deception and lies too. And you law students need to learn right now. Right now. Those 3 years will fly by. Then you'll study for the academic exam. That'll be done and gone. And within 30 to 90 days, depending upon your state, you're going to get your results. And I'm going to tell you something. When you go to work for these firms, they don't care about law review. They don't care what your academic standing was. They don't care about that. They care about you doing what? Yeah, bringing in the cash. Not screwing up, not getting them sued, and not embarrassing them, and getting it done. They don't want to hear your excuses. They don't want to hear your whining. They'll babysit you for a little bit just to make sure you don't screw up to get them sued or to ruin their firm. After that, you better be ready to deal with the legal matrix, because if not, you're going over the cliff with the lemmings. So, you law students, you lawyers, ask yourself this question: where in my world am I a lemming? Where are you a lemming? Are you leading? Are you following? Or are you just sitting on the bench? The day is coming. The day is coming when not a one of you law students, not a one of you lawyers, not a one of you judges is going to be able to sit on the bench and stand on the sideline. That day is coming. And you bar associations, the state of American Bar Association, you better wake up too. Because the more you produce lemmings and pat them on the back and lead them into a false sense of security, you're leading them to their ultimate destruction. This is Bryce D. Nyer for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix, and I am out of here.